How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another Marvel Snap Zone video. We have the ranked tier list for this week, September 26th, and not much going on. Not a terribly exciting week. Elias came out, shook up the meta a couple weeks ago. Ravana came out last week, and nothing happened. So essentially, what has happened in this last week is the meta has just kind of settled in. Different decks have shown up and done a bit better. Other decks have fallen to the wayside, been played a little bit less. Notably, Loki Collector is now no longer tier 1, and is down to tier 2. And Alioth has really just dominated the meta as a whole. It's included in a lot of these top decks. We'll go over the list very quickly, but there's just not much change. There's no new decks coming to the meta. Iron Patriot says new on here. It's in tier 1. It was on the Conquest tier list last week. It's a deck that we've seen before. It has Elias thrown in it now. It's doing pretty well in the ranked meta. Outside of that, not much new and exciting. By the way, if you guys haven't seen it, Den has a guide for Evolved Doomwave. So if you haven't seen the full article, go check it out. There's no sleeper decks this week, or silent performer decks, whatever you want to call them. I like calling them sleeper decks. There's no silent performers this week. Everything is just kind of the same stuff. So I'm going to skim through it. It's probably going to be the shortest tier list video that I've done, but let's talk about it. Evolved Doomwave, same list, Wave Doom. I'm curious how well these decks are going to do with Mobius out. Mobius has been out for a little bit, and so far people have just been chucking him into existing decks, and not much has changed. I think Loki I've run into a little bit less, but I've chucked him into the ramp list. I've thrown him into this list. He's really just getting thrown into already existing lists. And so again, not much else to say. I feel like I've talked about Evolved Doomwave every week, and it's the same list. It's a solid list. It's easy to play. It does what it's trying to do, and in the current meta, it's doing really well. Overall, because of the abundance of Elias in the meta, this deck counters Elias fairly well. If Elias hits your Doom on the last turn and you have priority, which a lot of the time you will because of the early game cards that you're playing, you're not too concerned. You still get 10 power total. You have armor and Cosmo to protect, say, the Hulk that you're going to play on last turn from Elias. So overall, just a solid deck. Again, nothing's changed here. If you want, you can try to swap out Cosmo for Mobius and see how that works out for you if you have him. Otherwise, just proven deck. If you're trying to climb this last week while people are experimenting with Mobius, this is probably the deck to do it with. It's very easy, very straightforward. On to the next one. Elias Ramp. This was here as well. This is the deck that I've been playing. I did swap out, I believe, Nebula for Mobius. Takes out a little bit of the early game, but I've been having success with it. Again, it's an Elias list. It's a ramp list. We saw this last week. We saw it on the Conquest tier list. Ramp. I told you this is going to be quick. Move Doomwave. Again, the move list with the move package. Very similar. I say very similar. It has Wave and Doom, which is just very strong in the current meta. Wave shutting off a lot of these Loki decks that are dumping cards on the last turn. You'll notice Sarah Control hasn't been on this list for a little bit, and just a very good combo in itself. And then that early game move package just proving to be very consistent and very solid. Also good against all the Galactus stuff. So a lot of these early game power lets you move power around, lets you get early game power, so it's a little bit harder to get Galactus off. And so again, solid list. We move on to Cerebral 5. I think Cerebral 5 is just a worse version of the last list we looked at, of the Move Doomwave list. It shares 6 cards with the list. It doesn't have that early game move package. That's essentially removed. But overall, it's just the same type of idea. And I think it's just a worse version of it. I hate Cerebral list. I hate all of the different things that can affect it, the locations, your opponent's cards. I'm just not the biggest fan, and judging by the numbers, Move Doomwave has just been doing better. So I'd recommend playing Move Doomwave, but Cerebral 5 was on the Silent Performers last week. So again, not a new list, nothing new in this meta. Coming up, Iron Patriot. This is new to the tier list like this week. It was in the Conquest tier list last week. It made that list. It's now here. It's proving to be really good with Elias added to the list, but this isn't like a new list that we haven't seen before. It's Iron Patriot. Again, it's the same idea. You're looking to Forge, into Brood, into Absorbing Man, throw down a Blue Marble or Iron Man on turn 5. Really, turn 5 is your only flex play where you can figure out what you want to do. And then turn 6, depending on what's going on, you have Elias, you have Dr. Doom, or you have America Chavez if you need to go very tall. You also obviously have the Silver Surfer route on turn 6. And if your Silver Surfer gets Elias after you have priority, you get it off, it gets killed, and it's not a big deal. So again, very strong in the current meta. Yeah, not much else to say. It's the same as last week. Elias is dominating and not much has been shaken up. There's no OTA, there's no impactful new cards. So this is where we're at. Hopefully you guys are still getting value out of this video. Discard Dracula. I think it's a very good deck against Elias decks because it doesn't care too much because of Dracula being able to discard Apocalypse. You're able to get power out even on turn 6, even if your cards get destroyed. And if you end up dumping a bunch of cards on turn 6, things like Wolverine, if you haven't gotten rid of the Dakin Shard, whatever, I don't remember anymore. You play those and then they get destroyed and it's not a big deal. So this deck is very good at getting power out. If you discard a bunch of swarms, you're not just putting power in one lane, so you're able to dump a bunch on turn 6. So again, this deck is just a solid, somewhat consistent, but it's been here on this list for a while. I don't even know how long it's been on this list. It's been here. It's been somewhat consistent on ladder. I've never been a fan of discard, but it's performing pretty well, and especially in this current meta, still performing very well. Then we go down to Loki Collector. Not posting as good as numbers as it was at the beginning of the month. It's just, I think the surprise factor of Loki Collector is no longer there, and it's gotten to settle down a little bit. From the last like 12 hours, a little over 12 hours, since Mobius has been out, I've seen less and less Lokis. Mobius affects this deck somewhat. It's still a powerful deck, but you do miss that entire discount from Loki, and you miss the discounts from Quinjet whenever Mobius comes out. So it does really impact this deck. But I'm curious to see where this deck falls in next week's tier list. I think that'll be a little bit more exciting when Mobius has a chance to impact the meta. So far, it's not as impactful as people thought it was going to be, but we're just going to see. Again, Loki Collector. And then we have Shuri, Old Faithful, here in tier 2. Nothing changed. Solid deck. I think Shuri's just going to stick around, kind of like how Discard Dracula has stuck around. Elias doesn't affect it too much because you can play around things. You can play your Shuri into whatever is a vision, and then on turn 6 you can play the Taskmaster into an armor lane, and you have a little bit of flexibility. That being said, the Shuri Kitty deck that was around for like a week that was doing really well, it was my favorite deck, that's now gone with all of the wave in the meta. It's just completely gone. So this is the only Shuri list that has stuck around. According to Den, this list's numbers have dropped pretty significantly from the beginning of the month. So in the current meta, it's struggling slightly, but again, it is very good at going tall in 2 lanes and doing what it wants. So I don't think it's getting kicked off the list anytime soon, but as far as being a top meta deck, there's just better, more flexible things at the moment. Next up, we have Galactus. I haven't been playing this list. I like the ramp list better. That ramp list is a Galactus list to me. But Galactus, very good coupled with Elias. It's pretty crazy. This one's running Shang-Chi now. I don't think last week's had Shang-Chi in it, but this deck is very focused on getting Galactus to fire off, and it does pretty well against things like Loki Collector, Evolve Doomwave if you can get it off. I think it's just difficult to get this off because of all of the Cosmos. If your opponent is playing correctly, they can tell that you have a Galactus list. Playing Cosmo in one of those lanes really just ruins your game plan. So I do like the ramp list better because you have other alternative win conditions outside of Galactus. But Galactus is here again. Saw it last week, and it's been around since Elias has been around. I'm curious what they're going to do with Elias. He's been pretty strong. I don't know if he's too strong, but he is not fun to be hit with, especially when your opponent plays Galactus. They changed Spider-Man back in the day because it was just oppressive with Galactus, and Elias just really feels the same. So maybe they'll change it. I don't know. And that's it for the tier list. There's tier 3. We don't really go over tier 3, but there's only one deck there here. Deadpool Destroy. I think this has been sticking around tier 3 for the most part. It's tier 3. I'm not going to talk about it. I only go over the tier 1 and tier 2 decks. If you want, please check out the full article. There are budget lists that Den includes that are really good if you don't have near complete collections. And they're strong lists and are performing well as well. But again, not much exciting going on this week. Hopefully you still got value out of this video. I feel like I just constantly said, here's the deck, it's the same thing, moving on. Here's the deck, it's the same thing, moving on. But I really tried to give you guys all that I could. There's just not much info, and I didn't want to skip the video for this week, so here we are. I make my own Marvel Snap videos. I have my own channel, so go follow me there. Subscribe to my channel. I have the link in the description here. I do one of these tier list videos, one for ranked, one for conquest every week. So 2 videos for Marvel Snap Zone. So make sure you check those out. And as usual, if you love all things Marvel Snap, make sure you like and subscribe, hit the bell. I'll see you in the next one.